Sup everyone, I'm Mike Galonzka of Bacon S'mores. Thank you very much for checking out my blog. I am a stop motion animator, and today, in my first how-to video, I'm going to teach you guys how to make your very own wire armature for stop motion animation. So in order to make your wire armature, you will need a couple of things. 1/16 aluminum armature wire, 2 hex nuts, 2 wing nuts, and 2 bolts, all the same size, epoxy putty, needle nose pliers, wire cutters, a knife, painter's tape, a power drill, and an armature outline sheet, which I'll provide for you on the site. So the first thing you want to do is get out your wire. Now you'll notice that the wire comes pre-folded at the end and they run parallel to each other, which is what we want. So we're going to unspool this, and you want to gently sort of twist out like this. If you just pull it too hard, you can get a bend or a knot. You want to be patient with this part. Because we're making a 12-inch scale armature, we're going to need about 4 feet of bent wire. Once you have the desired amount, take out the wire cutters, cut them in two, and save the rest for another armature in the future. Before we move on, just straighten out the wire a little bit by pulling it through your hands. Once that's done, we get out our power drill, insert the 2 wire ends into the end of the drill, tightening it up, take out your needle nose pliers and hold the other end of the wire, and then give it a whirl. What you're doing here is creating more of a resistance in the wire, which will come in handy when we're animating. Now, you want to make sure as you move the drill, you're keeping track of the overlaps. You want to keep them about a centimeter apart. The more you drill, the closer the overlaps become, giving us a bad bend later. In order to construct our armature properly, we're going to need an outline sheet. Feel free to take this one off the blog or make your own with a simple stick figure drawing. Use the blue painter's tape to keep the sheet from moving around the table. Before tracing the wire over the outline, snip off the TV antennas you got from inserting it into the power drill, and then begin tracing starting at the left arm, working your way down the torso, bending at the hip, and down the leg. Now once you get to the ankle, this is important to attach the nuts later to the foot. You want to sort of bend it in an oval shape back over to the ankle, wrap it around it, and then continue back up and do the same thing on the other side. Feel free to use your pliers to pinch certain joints, and then just continue up the leg, to the next leg, back up the torso, and to the right arm. Now you notice here that I clearly overestimated the wire length, but you never want to underestimate, or else you might not make it all the way back up to that arm. So just take out the wire cutters, give it a cut, and there's your skeleton. The final thing you want to do here is actually take the leftover wire, measure it from the neck to the bottom of the torso, give it a cut, and attach it. Now we're ready for the dreaded epoxy. Now if you've never used epoxy putty before, it looks like a cigar or Tootsie Roll, usually gray in color, and available in the plumbing section at most hardware stores. It's a messy process, so I recommend getting some sort of cutting board out and your knife. And as you're peeling back the plastic, observe the 2 different colors. Those are the 2 chemical compounds. You want to knead those together, and it won't be ready until it's a solid color. The process of kneading together and applying 10 different sections of epoxy to our armature will take a while, so I recommend washing your hands throughout. I suggest applying the epoxy to the hip area first, then the torso, and working your way from the arms to the legs. And just a warning for you, epoxy stinks. It smells really bad. But you got to fight through it, keep on kneading, and as you're applying it, you'll notice the epoxy becoming very warm, which is totally normal. The chemicals are just reacting. The epoxy serves as keeping the wires together, and notice that we're putting it everywhere but the bendable joints, such as the knees, hips, elbows, shoulders, ankles, neck, and spine. The final step is applying the 2 hex nuts to the bottom of the feet. You want to be sure to bend the oval shape so it's facing directly down on the table. To successfully make an armature walk and stand during stop motion animation, the nuts are essential at the bottom of the feet. That way we can use the bolts and wing nuts in order to attach the armature through the animating floor and into the nut. We want to flatten the epoxy at the bottom of the foot, making it easier to stand. Now when applying the nut into the epoxy, you don't just want to shove the nut in by itself, because the epoxy can go in between the hole of the nut, making it impossible to later put a screw in. So I suggest putting the screw into the nut first, a little upward, and then place it into the foot. And once it's in there, take the surrounding epoxy and just sort of move it over on top of the nut to keep it from moving out, and then take out the screw. All that's left is applying the same thing to the other foot, and after a few hours of drying, you, my friend, have your very own self-made wire armature. Every week on my Bacon S'mores blog, we will be doing all kinds of stop-motion animation tasks. For instance, we're going to make him walk, we're going to make him run, we're going to build him sets, put some clay on him, eventually work our way up to better armatures, and I'll be showing you guys all sorts of tips, tricks, and a variety of stop-motion editing software. And my name is Mike Galonzka. Thank you so much for checking out my blog on Bacon S'mores. Hope to see you next week when I'll show you one way to make a stop-motion animation set. So until then, do me a favor, and have a good one. Thank you.